Recording in progress.
ईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ ईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ ईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वः प्रचोदयात्। शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः।
ॐ श्रीगणेशाय नमः। सरस्वत्यै नमः। श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः। हरिः ॐ। यश्छन्दसां वृषभो विश्वरूपः छन्दोभ्योऽध्यमृतात् सम्बभूव समेन्द्रो मेधया आस्पृणोतु अमृतस्य देवधारणो भूयासं शरीरं मे विचर्षणं जिह्वा मे मधुमत्तमा कर्णाभ्यां भूरिविश्रुवं ब्रह्मणः कोशोऽसि मेधया पिहितः श्रुतं मे गोपाय मेधा देवी जुषमाणा न आगाद्विश्वाची भद्रा सुमनस्यमाना त्वया जुष्टानुदमाना दुरुक्तान् बृहद्वदेम विदथे सुवीराः त्वया जुष्टर्षिर्भवति देवी त्वया ब्रह्मा गतः श्रीरुतत्वया त्वया जुष्टश्चित्रं विन्दते वसुसानो जुषस्वद्रविणो न मेधे मेधां इन्द्रो ददातु मेधां देवी सरस्वती मेधां मे अश्विना वुभावा धत्तां पुष्करस्रजा अप्सरासु च या मेधा गन्धर्वेषु च यन्मनः दैवी मेधा सरस्वती सामां मेधा सुरभिर्जुषतागस्वाहा आमां मेधा सुरभिर्विश्वरूपा हिरण्यवर्णा जगती जगम्या ऊर्जस्वती पयसा पिन्वमाना सामां मेधा सुप्रतीका जुषन्ताम् मयि मेधां मयि प्रजां मयि अग्निस्तेजो दधातु मयि मेधां मयि प्रजां मयीन्द्र इन्द्रियं दधातु मयि मेधां मयि प्रजां मयि सूर्यो भ्राजो दधातु हंसाय विद्महे परमहंसाय धीमहि तन्नो हंसः प्रचोदयात् नीलां देवीं शरणमहं प्रपद्ये गृह्णाहि घृतवती सवितराधिपत्यैः पयस्वतीरन्तिराशानो अस्तु ध्रुवा दिशां विष्णुपत्न्यघोरास्येषा सहसोया मनोता बृहस्पतिर्मातरिश्वोत वायुः सन्धुवाना वाता अभिनो गृणन्तु विष्टम्भो दिवो धरुणः पृथिव्या अस्येष्याना जगतो विष्णुपत्नी ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः
योगिनी Sai Ram to everyone. My humble salutations and pranams to the lotus feet of Bhagwan Baba. A warm welcome to all the elders here, the All India President, Nimish Pandya, Sir, National Coordinator, Mrs. Kamla Pandya, the State President, Anup Saxena, Sir, and all the office bearers for the MMR region. A warm welcome to you, Dr. Rani PL. Dr. Rani is an associate professor and head, Department of English Language and Literature of the Stree Satsang Institute of Higher Learning. She has been a meritorious Balvika student from Kerala. Dr. Rani joined the Anandpur campus as a student for her intermediate course in 1988. Thereafter, she completed her bachelor's degree of science in physics in 1993. At Swami's behest, she changed the course of study to a post-graduation course in English. Bhagavan granted her the opportunity to serve as a member of the university faculty in 1996. This she considers to be the biggest blessing of her life. In her 3 decades at the Anandpur campus, she has actively contributed to multifarious activities like hostel publications, division, various cultural events, and many co-curricular activities. Dr. Rani has been a former member of the women's band of the Anandpur campus and has been hugely instrumental in the growth of the women's brass band ever since. She has been blessed by Bhagwan to speak in his divine physical presence on a few occasions. An inspiring speaker, Dr. Rani feels it a blessing to be able to inspire young minds to direct their thoughts towards the Godward path. We are fortunate to have you with us today, Dr. Rani PL. Over to you, Dr. Rani. Sai Ram.
Om Shri Sai Ram. My grateful pranams at the lotus feet of our most beloved Bhagwan. And I specifically choose to say grateful because he never tires of creating occasions for me to reflect on him, to think of him, to speak of him, to do swadhyaya for my own upliftment. So I believe the singular reason for this satsang is my upliftment. May not be that in the audience, of anybody in the audience, actually. That's how kind and compassionate our Bhagwan is, because he actually concentrates on each of us and custom makes what each of us requires. Thank you, Yogini, for that slightly hyperbolic introduction. I always believe it is Bhagwan's immense grace that we are in the periphery of his vision and we have squirrel's roles in his mission. Thanks to the devotees of MMR for organizing a satsang, especially in today's times when we are all locked up in our homes. There is anxiety and despondency all around. One is not really sure what happens the next day or the next hour. It's so important for all of us, the Sai fraternity, to stay connected in our thoughts and words and deeds. We're all part of this satsang because we are part of the organization. And what is exclusive and unique about this organization? No other avatar in the history of mankind has begun organizations and institutions. We haven't heard of Lord Rama or Lord Krishna establishing universities and seva organizations. We haven't heard of them establishing bhajan mandalis or bal vikases. So Bhagwan himself, and especially he does this in a discourse that he is given at Dharmakshetra, I don't recall the date, where Swami says, you are so blessed to be part of an organization that is exclusively, so specially started or initiated by the avatar himself. So drawing attention to the fortune that we all share, let me get on to the task for the day. But before that, what is the need of a satsang? What is the need for any of us to be part of an organization like the Sri Sathya Sai Seva organization? Swami himself gives a very beautiful example. Swami says, and I like to quote all the metaphors and similes Swami uses in his discourses because such beautiful examples to explain such profound messages. Imagine that you have the wick, you have the lamp, and you have the oil, but that doesn't give you light. There has to be somebody who strikes the match and lights the wick. That's when the light comes. So the organization, its activities, all of which are connected to Bhagwan, is like that match striking to give us the light, despite everything else that we have. The topic for today, when I was mulling over this, usually a satsang of the Sathya Sai organization, we're all used to the Samarpan talks, where lots of lovely and beautiful stories of people's experiences with Bhagwan are shared. It's very engrossing because you listen to story after story after story, and we all go back saying, wow, what an experience, how amazing, what love the avatar had, how blessed this person is. These are usually the takeaways when we go from a samarpan or a satsang. But this topic set me thinking on a different path. I thought, while listening to Bhagavatam or the stories of God itself can be liberating, how long will we stay in the lower grades listening to stories like small children? When we go to higher grades, there is theory that comes in. And when we go to still higher grades, there is practicals that come in, isn't it? So also our own lives. How long will we only listen to stories of Swami did this, Swami cured that person, Swami performed this miracle, Swami, yes, all of it are so precious, such precious memories with such valuable lessons. But what happens beyond that in a satsang? This is what a strain of thought that was running across my mind, especially because I think of the topic that we are dealing with today. Now, Stree Shakti. And I presume there are also men in this audience. So can this topic be totally streamlined only for the women? Let me explain what I think of this. If you look at the Vedantic perspective, there is only one Purusha, and Prakriti is everything that has been created, and that includes the men and the women. So the feminine aspect is something that is common to entire creation. So it's all right if men are listening to this talk on Stree Shakti, because I believe it will be equally relevant for the brothers here also. I'm also slightly conscious that in the audience, and especially coming from a metropolitan city like Mumbai, there are girls and women, sisters who are, and students, maybe some of my students, who are this postmodern, liberalist, progressive thinking girls who have a rationale, who have a questioning mind. If I tell you the story of Gargi or Maitreyi, will it even make relevance? Does Sita and Draupadi have any pertinence in today's world? These are certain questions that genuinely and very, very sincerely some people battle with. And we also believe what happened in the past is not relevant for today's times. These are some of the myths that I am hoping to bust. I know it's a huge challenge, and I may not be entirely successful, but from the very little that I have watched and received from Bhagwan, and from the little understanding that I have developed of these things, allow me to take you through a time machine. I will bring for you to highlight the glory of womanhood. Women from Vedic times, women from the epics, women from history, and then women from today's modern times, from our own Satyasai circle. And in between, I'll try to insert what lessons lie hidden there for women to uphold the power of their glory. Let me begin with 2 or 3 women from the Vedic times. And all of them are from Bhagwan's examples and Bhagwan's discourses. Swami often talks about Maitreyi, Gargi. Now, Maitreyi, the wife of, they are mentioned in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, the wife of Yagnavalkya, very well-known scholar. Maitreyi herself was a Brahmavadin, and I'm specifically saying this because many of our children and the modern generation have a feeling that women in India were oppressed, did not have an occasion for education, were very suppressed, and could never pursue intellectual pursuits. Like today, they go to Stanford and Harvard or Oxford. We also had Vedic women, intellectuals, stalwarts, but they debated on the Atma Jnana. So Yajnavalkya's wife Maitreyi, it's a long story, and I'm just picking parts of each one's life because I'm hoping that I will encourage you to go and read more if you haven't. And for those who have read, pardon me for repetitiveness. So when Yajnavalkya finished, he thought he finished the 3 stages of his life, brahmacharya, grihasthashrama and vanaprastha, and he wanted to take up sannyasa. He was going to leave, renounce. He called both his wives, Maitreyi and Katyayani, and he said, I want to divide my wealth between the 2 of you before I leave. And Maitreyi said, will receiving this wealth tell me or teach me about immortality? He said, no. She said, before you leave with me that wealth which will tell me how to get immortality or what is immortality. Now, this can be unbelievable, but Swami repeats, it's only when a woman is conscious of her inner divinity can she actually exude it and allow the family in some way to think of the divine. Take Gargi. Janaka, King Janaka was having the Rajasuya Yagna, most lavishly done Yagna. All the scholars of the kingdom were there. And King Janaka felt that he must, since the best of minds were there, he must pick the most important scholar or the most accomplished of them and reward him or her. So he set out 1,000 cows, and the horns of the cows had 10-gram gold coins hanging. And he said, whoever establishes himself as the greatest Brahmagyani, scholar on Atma Jnana or on Brahman, will be rewarded with these 1,000 cows. Yajnavalkya, who was very sure, self-confident of his standing as a scholar, already ordered his disciple to redirect all the cows to his hermitage, because sure he is the one who will stand to win it. Very few people contested it, challenged it. Most local scholars said, no, nobody is above or beyond Yajnavalkya in his knowledge. But there were 9 scholars who stood to contest Yajnavalkya's scholarship. Each one had a debate with him, and finally came the turn of Gargi. Gargi asked repeatedly questions on the infiniteness of the soul, came to more practical matters like the Panchabhutas, and repeatedly a volley of questions. She debated with him, and finally Gargi passed her judgment in front of King Janaka. There isn't a scholar greater than Yajnavalkya in terms of Brahmagnana. So Gargi was undertaking the role of passing a judgment on the greatest scholar. So she must be obviously a higher scholar. So that is the level of intellect. And she was actually the Navaratnas of King Janaka's court, who said women were not given their due position. Let's look at Madalasa. And very recently on the internet and on WhatsApp, there was this song going on about a foreigner singing the Madalasa Upadesha. She had 4 sons. And the 3 sons had their own names. And then, of course, that's a long story. But whenever the children cried, the lullaby that she sang was on philosophical truths of life. Compare that with the lullabies that we sing for our children today. Maybe the art of singing lullaby itself is lost because the child is crying and we see parents turning on the YouTube, and there is this cartoon or kid tune or whatever that comes that we play for the children to calm them down. What is it that Madalasa, she's the queen of Ridhwaja, the king Ridhwaja, it was words of jnana that she sang as lullaby for her children when they cried. Shuddhosi, buddhosi, niranjanosi. This is how her lullaby starts. I mean, that reminded me of actually Shankara. That kind of truth. Samsara maya parivarjatosi. Get rid of the maya of the samsara. You are the Shuddha, Shuddhosi, Buddhosi, Niranjanosi, the unsullied one, the pure one, the enlightened one. This is what she made small toddlers here. And what is the outcome of it? Her children, none of them vied for the throne. The 3 sons went away to do penance. The 4th son, I think his name was Alarka. So she said, finally, she and the husband, they were going to take up sannyasa. Alarka was ruling the kingdom. Before she left, she gave him a gold ring. She should rule the kingdom with all the wisdom that you have received right from the time you have been in my womb, and you will do well. But if ever you come upon a crisis, that's when open this gold ring, and there is this small lettered message for you. You can read the message and follow that. So Alarka was ruling, and finally, of course, he came across certain challenges because his elder brother became jealous of him in the company of some others. And when he came across this difficult time, he opened to read what the advice of his mother was. The king opening to read the advice of the mother. What has she written? Sangaha sarvatmana tyajaha sat chetyakum na shaktite. If you are not capable, exit the society. The advice of a mother to the king. The minute you have become an incapable king, you don't have the position of a king, leave your kingdom. And she says, if you are not able to leave the society, join the Sangha of the sadhus. So, the kind of advice that mothers of the past gave their children, this sounds way beyond what we might do. But let me therefore go to, maybe as you come down, you find how the dilution happens also. Having spoken about 3 women from the Vedic times, let me now take you to the epic times. And the simplest, anytime Swami gave a discourse, especially for Ladies' Day, the first example he started with is Savitri. Of course, Damayanti and Chandramati. Now, if you look at Savitri from the Vanaparva of Mahabharata, Ashwapati was the father, most virtuous daughter that he had. Savitri sent her out to find a befitting groom for her. And then that's when she was returning after taking a tour of the kingdom, not finding anybody actually eligible for her steadfast virtues. Her eyes fell on Satyavan in the forest, taking care of his blind parents. She returns and tells the father, he is the man I will marry. Narada, as always, at the most crucial time, he's around in the right place. So he listens to the story and he says, "O king, but the Satyavan, true, he belongs to he has the royal blood in him, but he has a life of only 1 more year. In a year's time, he's going to be dead. So this is not the right match for your daughter." What does Savitri say? I've heard a lot of my friends, teenage daughters saying, "My life, my choice." I hear it like a slogan from teenagers. My life, my choice. True. So Savitri also did that. My life, my choice. She said, I have set my eyes on Satyavan. Set my mind and heart on him. And even if it means that he will not last beyond a year, I shall not be able to be unchaste and change my thoughts and mind to somebody else. So are we saying that she's foolish? She's getting married to a man who was just going to live 1 year? No. We know the solution that she had. She got married 3 days before Satyavan was to die. She takes the Savitri Vrata, which many women do even today for their husband's welfare. 3 days of very strict and vigil and vow. And 4th day, in the most undeniable fashion. If you read actually Aurobindo Savitri is beautiful. Even the way she presents her point of view is not argumentative but assertive. That's for the woman to emulate, not argumentative but assertive. So she says, I'm going to follow Satyavan to the woods today. She goes. We know that Yamadharmaraja came, Satyavan is taken. Savitri simply follows. She does not argue with Yamadharmaraja because she knows Yama is simply doing his dharma. What is the whole point in arguing with him? She does not pick up an argument with him, follows him, and doesn't speak to unless she is spoken to. But the conversation that Yama and Savitri have, full of wisdom. And we all know finally how she manages with her intelligence, asking for 100 sons of Satyavan, and her perseverance. Umpteen times Yama tells her to return. It is useless following him. But with her perseverance, with her intelligence, she gets back the life of her husband. Is that even possible? It's a story maybe, but I'll come to more believable stories as we come closer home to modern times. Sri Aurobindo was asked once, he was asked, of all the heroines, there is Sita, there is Draupadi, there are so many women characters. Why did you choose to write about Savitri? Now, he took 30 to 40 years of his life to write that epic poem, Savitri. You know what he said? He said, of all the heroines in the epics, it's only Savitri who never shed a tear despite tragedy befalling her. Now, we could ask ourselves, does that mean that the women could suppress her tears? No. The idea is the strength of mind she had, the confidence that she had, the perseverance that she never had to break down. That is the point. It is not the point of hiding your feelings, because we might again have an argument, a modernistic argument which says, oh, that means women are not even allowed to cry. Is that what you're suggesting? No. The idea is she did not need to cry because she was powerful from the inside. It is that inner strength that gives glory to womanhood. Second story from the epics. Lakshmana decides to go with Sri Rama to the forest. He goes to meet his mother Sumitra. And what would typically a mother say? Your brother has to go to the forest. Why should you go? You enjoy yourself in the forest and I want you near me. I cannot live without you. It's foolishness for you to decide to go to the forest when you don't have to. But what does Sumitra say? She says, Lakshmana, don't think that you are leaving all of us behind in the palace and going away to the forest. Where Rama is, there is Ayodhya. Where Rama is not, that is a jungle. So essentially, we will be living in a jungle and you will be living in Ayodhya with Rama. Look at the most positive, fruitful perspective that a mother gives. And this is what holds a joint family together. This is what holds the clan together. This is what brought peace when there was disharmony otherwise. To be able to contribute in a positive manner to bring harmony, because end of the day, I feel the job of the woman, literally the job profile of the woman, is to maintain unity, purity, divinity in all ways. That sums up what Swami expects of women. And by women, I already mentioned, Purusha is only one, Prakriti is all the rest of creation. Then there is Lakshmana going to Urmila. The wife can create a fuss. Oh, how can I live without you? Why should you be going behind your brother and sister-in-law? It is their choice. Let us go make our own palace and live separately, which is the easiest thing that today anybody talks about, right? When there is a discord, let's move out. Or let's send them out. So what does Urmila say? She says, oh Lord, carry on. If I accompany you, you will not be able to provide undivided attention to Rama and Sita. Your service to them will be hindered with my presence. I shall wait for you here for 14 years till you come back. Sacrifice. Woman has it in her naturally to sacrifice. It is natural. She doesn't even have to tell herself. Because day in and day out, that's what a mother is doing. The mother forgets to eat the lunch but cooks for the whole family. The mother forgets to have a bath or doesn't find time to have a bath but ensures that the children are bathed and kept clean. So it is natural in a woman to sacrifice. From the epics. All these, the Vedas and epics might seem like myths or maybe concocted stories to modern minds. Let's go to history now. I have some wonderful stories. All of us know Putli Bai. We all know Gandhiji. We know the Kokila Vrata. I don't have to linger on that story. Every day Putli Bai did this Vrata and she had to wait for the sound of the koel, and until then she did not eat. Gandhiji, as a little boy, was very distressed that the mother was not eating one day because the sound of koel didn't come. The cooing of the koel was not heard. So he thought it very clever to go hide behind a bush and make the sound of the koel, which he did. But when the mother found it out, what she gave was one tight slap. And if a boy like Gandhi became Mahatma, it is because of the vow of truthfulness that he took that day. The ability of the mother to discriminate between what to encourage and what not to encourage goes a long way in history. Rambha, she was just a maid in Gandhiji's household. Now, the way she contributed, I feel very overwhelmed when I think of this. She was an illiterate maid. So one day as a little boy, Gandhiji comes running to her and says, I am feeling fear. I'm afraid of something. I don't know, this fear that's overpowering me. And she gives him a very simple solution. She says, whenever you feel afraid of anything, say Ram Ram. And you find when God says bullets pierced his body, he died saying, Hey Ram. Imagine the impact that a maid had when he was a little boy. He ended his life. That's what all of us are looking for, right? In our last minutes, we all want to be saying Sai Ram. How easily will it come? We don't know. We know the story of the man who named all his sons with Narayana, Keshava and all, and then he called them when he was dying. And then we know how he called them thinking that last minute when he calls, that will be the name with which he will die. But we also know that he ended up asking them, who is in the shop if all of you are here? So I feel Rambha as a simple Rambhadai or something, as a simple maid was able to make that huge impact on Gandhiji. She was not educated. She was not an intellectual. She was not debating on Vedanta like Gargi or Maitri. But look at the impact. Gandhiji died with the words, Hey Ram. And I feel that was the seed laid by Rambha. Jijabai. The Maratha stories are, I'm sure, very familiar to all of you, but there are two stories that stand out in Shivaji's biography because of the impact caused by the mother. So there was this Subedar, a Muslim Subedar and his son, and they were plundered and they were caught by the king's men and they were brought in front of Shivaji. Shivaji was dealing with them. And then the minister said, we have one more prisoner, and that is the daughter-in-law of Subedar, who was also in the caravan that we stopped and attacked. We have brought her for you, they said. Shivaji said, let her be shown to. Why did you bring her? They said, she is the most resplendent in beauty that we have seen. We haven't seen a lady more beautiful than her, Your Highness. So we brought her for you. Shivaji says, let her be brought to me. The caravan or the palanquin is brought. Shivaji walks up, removes the veil, and what he's frozen in time looking at the beauty that is in front of him. And they say nobody can actually look Shivaji in his eyes. Shivaji gave a piercing look at the young lady in front of him, and she, with unflinching vision, looked back at him. But then he noticed the tears in her eyes. He closed the veil, turned away. The entire court is waiting to know what he will decide to do with this beauty. He asked the minister, what do you suggest I should do? And the minister says, usually what the enemies do is, when they capture our women, they make them part of the dance troupe of the court. It wouldn't be too much out of the protocol to even make her a mistress, Your Majesty, says the minister. He looks around and he says, I would like to exercise the law of humanity over the law of society or protocols. How would I be different from my enemies? When I look at her, I remember Ma Sahib, that is his mother, Jijabai. Give her the dignity and the care that you would give Ma Sahib and take her back safe to where she belongs. It is that look, that beautiful look on her face, which reminded him of his mother's face, that made him make the most magnanimous decision. The next story is even better. He had captured an enemy's son, and this son with his friend was conspiring to escape. So what he does is, he, in his rage, he says, I brought these young guys, I beheaded their father who was my enemy. I would have taken care of these boys, but since they are planning to run away, behead them. And they were beheaded. He was ill at ease. The mother returns, Ma Sahib. The mother says, what is this that I hear? He says, Ma, listen to what I did. Listen to why I had to do it. She says, yes, tell me. And he says, after I captured them, I was taking care of them with love and concern. But they conspired behind my back and they wanted to run away. When I captured them back, they ought to have fallen at my feet and sought pardon. But that's not what they did. The mother listened and she said, just because you won over the enemy, their father, just because you captured their kingdom, you expect that they should fall at your feet and seek pardon? And then she says, it is easy to deal with failure, but it is very difficult to deal with the arrogance of success. Then he says, but mother, if I had let them off, they would grow up to be poisonous snakes who would strike me when they grow. And then he says, she reminds him of a very beautiful story. When you were smaller, you went hunting. You came back with 2 lion cubs. You fed the lion cubs with milk and food, always knowing that the lion cubs will grow into lions, which are terrifying. To an animal that can grow up to be danger, you were kind. To your enemy's sons, children, you couldn't be kind. Maybe you should go and behead their mother, because it is sinful to make a mother go through the beheading of the son. Hearing this, Shivaji was extremely ashamed and guilty, fell at her feet, and she said one last, and he begged for pardon. And then she said one line to him, if power is going to corrupt your wisdom, such power is of no use. That's when he vowed that he will never behave thus. The impact of a mother on a king, on a powerful king, Emperor Shivaji. These are again stories from books. We haven't seen Shivaji, we haven't seen Jijabai. Come to modern times. Let me bring you some examples. I'll begin with Sudha Murthy. She's well known to all of us because of the books she writes and all other reasons. Started about 60,000 libraries and schools all over the country. No mean joke to do that, 60,000 libraries. So the story is of how she became the first woman employee of telco. All of us know this. All of us know how when she graduated out of IIT, there was a notification, an advertisement from Tata Telco saying there was a position for such and such a designation. But the last line said only men candidates need to apply. This line actually annoyed her. And not knowing what to do, she wrote a postcard. And who did she write it to? Straight to JRD Tata. And JRD Tata promised to look into the matter, got the thing rectified, and decided to have women employees also. And she became the first woman employee of Tata because she was confident of her abilities. She argues how a woman employee is going to be more an asset than a man employee. Of course, that is debatable, but this is how she argued a case. And she got her way through. Now, why should we talk of examples all over? If today I am a part of the Sri Sathya Sai Institute of Higher Learning, it is because an illiterate rural housewife expressed a simple desire to her son. Myself and a lot of others in the audience who have been part of the institutions would not have had these institutions probably, but for the simple desire of Mother Ishwaramma. Let me go back to 1970s, December 31st. Bhagwan is in your own Mumbai. He was in the then Minister P.K. Sawant's official residence. He was talking to an academy of Vedic scholars. And after the session, Bhagwan asked them to ask him questions. I was thinking the Q&A sessions Bhagwan started in the 1970s. So he said, anybody in the audience, ask me questions that you want. And the editor of Navkal about Mumbai Daily asked Bhagwan a question. Asked him, so when did you start exhibiting divine powers? And Bhagwan said, oh, that right from my birth. In fact, not even from my birth, I was in Shirdi before that. And of course, as Krishna before that. And then this gentleman was asking, Swami, so that means, Swami stopped him and said, that means I resolved on my birth and I decided who my mother should be. Now, I thought, what an enviable position that is, to be chosen by God to be his mother. And who did he choose? Not an Oxford-educated, highly wealthy, fashionable, up-to-date with modern trends, highly skilled, popular woman. He chose a simple, rural, illiterate, but pious housewife. But what is her impact on the world? She was illiterate. She was from the remotest village of the country. But what is the impact that she has had for the nation or the world today? All the Sathya Sai organizations, the institutions, she simply said, have a small dispensary, have a small school, have a small well, so that the people of our village will not suffer. And the son, who was none other than the divine incarnate, multiplied her desire by 1,000-fold and created a world-class super specialty hospital, a world-class university, and an unparalleled water supply project in the country, or maybe in the world. So the glory of womanhood is not in the external thrusts and focus that we have in today's world. It is not in the number of degrees, it's not in the social status, it is not in the physical appearance. There is something far beyond all this. That is the power of a woman. Let's come to the first of the institutions that Bhagwan started, educational institutions. The maiden institution, pun on the word maiden, for women at Anantapur. In 1968, in Rayalaseema, where one wouldn't even think that girls would actually study, he opened in 115 acres of land a campus. Why? If we go through the discourses that Bhagwan gave on that day, July 8th, 1971, and that's not when the college was started, that's when the campus was inaugurated. The discourse has beautiful injunctions from Bhagwan for women and what his vision for women is. The first thing he says is, we need educated mothers to bring up children in today's world. Just because you're a householder or a housewife doesn't mean that education is of no good. Because the nourishment and the burden and the responsibility of the reputation of the family rests largely on the woman and the way she deals with her family. For the inauguration of the college, of the hostel actually, Bhagwan had His Excellency, the then President of India, V.V. Giri, but the hostel was inaugurated by the First Lady, Srimati Saraswati Giri. Now, she talks about too, and Bhagwan quotes her in the discourse. Swami says, blind imitation of alien cultures is what is leading to the decline in the power of women. Blind imitation of alien cultures. I will add to it a corollary. Lack of pride in our indigenous culture. I see women in men's clothes, but I've never seen a man in ladies' clothes. We are happy to wear jeans, but men never wear skirts, do they? Women have to feel proud to be women. There are different reasons. I'm not pointing this is just an example. But what I'm saying is a blind imitation of alien cultures is equivalent to a lack of understanding of, Swami says, the richness of the culture of Bharat, the music, the dance, the sculpture, the scriptures, the architecture, such a rich heritage. And it is only the mother who can pass it from one generation to the next. And then he gives such simple but beautiful examples of how the woman can uphold the glory of womanhood in little ways. It is the woman who will actually set the habit or trait of seva, selfless activity, selflessness, because she is herself the embodiment of selflessness. It's only a woman, sorry, but in the postmodern world, I know where people think that motherhood is a huge hindrance to profession. Motherhood is a huge demand on their time, energy, and resources. People choose consciously not to embrace motherhood after actually taking the grihasthashrama. These are very weird times, very strange times, and one does not understand these things sometimes. But however, Swami says, for example, if you want to instill the habit of seva, every day when the mother takes out rice to cook for lunch or dinner, if she makes it a habit to take a fistful and keep it aside, at the end of a week or 10 days, if she cooks that and distributes that as Narayan Seva, it will become a family tradition. The children will see it happen and will start to appreciate it. What is required is, today we tell the children, learn this, learn that, get that degree, SAP, you have to go to this university, all these things. But Swami says it's not acquiring of skills, but it is sublimation of emotions and passions that the mothers should train the children in. The example of Jijabai, if the fact that Shivaji was not tempted to make that beautiful woman his mistress is an example of sublimation of a passion. Swami says again in the discourse, he says, Lord Shiva, he swallows the halahala. The halahala is a poison that is dangerous to the world, so he hides it by swallowing it. The moon is that which cools and comforts the world, so he displays it on his head. There is a lesson there, Swami says. Why? That which is unpleasant, that which is harmful, that which is dishonorable, the woman should learn to swallow, not expose her family to the public eye. That which is calming, that which is cooling, that which spreads joy to the world is what she must externally display. Swami himself, such beautiful examples that he uses to tell us, what is important for a woman. Now, and I find that Swami's example of seva and selfless love, actually today, a COVID time, I know in all the cities, the alumni, in fact, every day in our classmates, batchmates group, we have some of our sisters cooking food for families infected by the COVID. So how does it come to go beyond oneself, to actually look at to be of some benefit to the society beyond your own? Because that's why Swami says, the government brings all these titles. The government says, Dharma Padni, all positive. What else? She's Samrajya Lakshmi, Samaj Lakshmi, Rajya Lakshmi. So if you look at the case of Mother Isharama, it's an example of Rajya Lakshmi. She's actually wielded power over an entire generation and over a system of education or a system of medicine with her simple desires. So these little seeds, Swami says, you can't sow neem seeds and expect mango tree to grow. The seeds that we sow in our children, like Madalasa did while singing the lullaby, or Jijabai did when she brought up Shivaji, or Sumitra did when she explained to Lakshmana, the seeds that we sow in the next generation. And I'm saying next generation because Bal Vikas teachers have a big role. As teachers, many of us as professional teachers, we have a big role in shaping the next generation. During interactions with Bhagwan, there are small little incidents by which Bhagwan actually used to tell us what befits a woman and what does not befit. In fact, Dharma Vahini chapter 4 and 5 is entirely about what is expected, Stree Dharma. And when we say Stree Dharma, I didn't want to make it very theoretical, but the Sattva Guna, the Tamo Guna, the Rajo Guna. A woman is a combination of all the three. So are they bad qualities, Tamas and Rajas? No. One is modesty, the coyness that you expect at the right moment, and the other is courage that you expect at another time, the Rajoguna. So that's precisely what Swami trains his girl students to do. At one point, you find that they're going in lines, they're looking down and walking, they're Swami says it's better to be one step behind the times than one step ahead of times. And at another time, what do you see on the Hillview Stadium? Daredevil stunts that the girls perform. The same Bhagwan who is keen that his girls are kept one step behind, not really exposed to the public eye, insists that they are modestly dressed. Look down and walk. Talking about this, I remember it was the summer course of 90s, early 90s, the summer course. So Swami was May 15th, 1991, 92, I'm not exactly sure. Swami was distributing the badge, the pen and the book, but he used to give it himself to us in the Kalyan Mandap, the old Kalyan Mandap in Vrindavan. And after Swami gave it to us, the girl students used to stay in the hostel at the extreme end, then the boys' hostel, then the Kalyan Mandap, and then Trai. So for every meal, we had to cross the boys' hostel and go to the Kalyan Mandap. So Swami was telling us, he was giving us books and badges, and after that he said, Churandi, look here, you will be coming for every meal, crossing the men's hostel. Itla chuskoni rakandi. Adi kaki drishti. Swami said, it is look down and walk like dignified girls. If you look here, and it's a very small thing, and probably we cannot even be very explicit about these things with today's generation, but makes a big difference. Why? Because everything that our subconscious mind absorbs is through our senses. Our senses are the gateways to the world. What we see is what remains in our. Why did Swami tell us don't read bad books or don't watch bad scenes in a movie? That's because one scene, it stays in the subconscious. Once read about, it stays in the subconscious. So Swami said, look down and walk. It is crows. Kaki drishti means it is crows that keep looking here and there when you walk. It's a small injunction, but I feel it has a large impact in the character and the nature of a woman. There is one of our senior teachers who shares with every batch of students before they pass out a very beautiful lesson. She says there was this time when she was visiting Puttaparthi. Bhagwan came out for darshan and saw her in the lines. And Swami said, oh, you've come. Has your husband come? Swami said. So she very happily, Swami, welcomingly spoke to her. And Swami said, has your husband come also? And then she said, no, Swami, he has gone to his parents' house. That's it. That warm, pleasant smile on his face simply vanished and became serious. And he said, why do you say his parents? Can you not say he went to my in-laws' house? Enduku tane parents intiki, why do you say that? Ma atta mama intiki, why can't you say that? So Swami expects when a girl is married into a family to have that sense of belongingness. And it shows in these simple words. For all you know, it was a simple word. It was not a feeling. But in these small words, sometimes lies scope for misunderstanding, scope for distancing in a family. When you say, hey, your mother is saying, if you tell your husband in the house, or if you say, Amma is saying, isn't there a huge difference? So these are such tiny lessons that Swami, and little things about it, talking about how sense control is important. Because I feel this unrestrained freedom that today's generation wants is the cause for, unless we have a deeper understanding of our culture, of the philosophy of our culture, this unrestrained freedom is very dangerous for the generations. Why? That's where the power of women is deteriorating. Once there was this teacher, very elderly senior teacher of the campus. So Swami used to come and stay on campus those days. And the classes would run like normal. Swami would be going around visiting classes or doing his work, and people would be doing their own work. How much we took divinity for granted, that's all we can think of now when we think of those days. So there was this teacher who was coming out of the staff room. She's no more. She's one of our senior Telugu teachers, and I heard it from her own mouth. So Swami was coming across, and she was going to a class. She had her textbook and her attendance register with her. So Swami came, she said, Swami, class ke altna bound. Swami, shall I take namaskar? Yes. So she bent down, she kept her book on the floor, put her head on Swami's feet, took namaskar. And when she got up, Swami was red in his face. You know what? Ide na class teeske velledi, he said. Is this what you're carrying to the class? Her attendance register was covered with a newspaper that had a movie poster on it. And Swami says, are the students going to look at you, or are they going to look at the cover of your book? It is that protective Swami was about not exposing us to what is not desirable, especially at that age. So to be able to train and mold our next generation, to understand what matters in life and what really does not matter in life. What is the truth and what is not the truth? How much of importance we should give to externalities, and how little to externalities, and how much more to our inside. These are matters that only a woman, a lady, can take charge of. And talking about Swami's perspective of women, it is impossible not to mention the cliche. And the students here will have a chuckle when I say this. Kattu, Bottu, Juttu is one simple formula that Swami gave for a woman to proudly exhibit and display her womanhood. It may be an external thing, but it'll somewhere reflect on the inside. What did Bhagwan mean by Kattu, Bottu, Juttu? Kattu is the costume, it's your dress, it's your physical appearance. Bottu is that one special symbol of a woman, of womanhood. One should proudly have it on the forehead, I would think. Juttu, the way we have a streak of brown and a lock of purple and a part of gold here, and that, I tell my students, is something that sometimes keep us very preoccupied, even in more important situations and circumstances. So modesty, chastity, all this actually sums up in Swami's 3 words, Kattu, Bottu, Juttu. The externalities are taken care of. But is Swami that one orthodox, unprogressive or regressive minded individual? No. He's an upholder of new femininity. New femininity is probably a term that the youngsters here know. New femininity is a combination of soft and strong virtues, both put together. Soft when required, strong when required. Combination is what we require. Did we know that it was the stubbornness of a lady that led to Swami giving one of his first public discourses? Imagine what you can drive God to do. There was Ishwarama who expressed a desire and got all this done for all of us. There was in Jema Madam, Professor Jalakshmi Gopinath, our former warden and principal of the campus. In one of her recollections, she talks about a Janakamma. This Janakamma was a highly orthodox Brahmin lady who lived in the ashram in the early years. We have all heard of the word muddy, you don't like to touch things and make yourself unclean. So she would cook for Swami. She would love to cook for Swami and go and keep it near the veranda. And Swami's sisters, who had the privilege of taking that food to Swami, would take it to Swami. Swami would call him and say, Teesko, Pad Namaskar. She wouldn't touch him, muddy. And everybody around would think, what a foolish woman. Here is God asking her to take Namaskar, Pad Sparsh, and here is she saying, no, I won't. Why? Because muddy, I won't touch. Okay. And Swami was not from the Brahmin community, right? So all the more reason that she would not do that. So it went on like this, and all the ladies found her very peculiar for how she behaved. She would sit far away from everybody else during bhajan. So one day during the bhajan sessions, she was sitting away. Suddenly Swami told everybody, make way for her, let her come in front. She came in front and Swami made her sit next to her. Swami said, oh, today is Ekadashi. Yes, Swami. So you're fasting? Yes. She doesn't take even a drop of water, so strictly orthodoxical and ritualistic. So Swami said, so what would you otherwise do in the evenings on an Ekadashi day? She said, Swami, I would go to the nearest temple. And what would happen in the temple? Said Swami, a lot of talks on Puranas and scriptures would happen in the temple. Oh, is that all? Then Swami said, got a table and a mic brought, kept in front of him, he got up and he said, I am the Purana. I am the Veda. Today I want to tell you what I am. And Jeremy Adams says that's the first time he used a setup of a discourse with a mic and a table, addressed a public gathering to announce what he was, because she wanted to listen. You know, the lady was used to listening to Puranas in the evening. So an Orthodox lady who refused to take Padnamaskar from Swami ended up becoming the cause for one of the most public discourses, the first ones that we ever had from Bhagwan. There are lots and lots of such stories. So, but then what I think is, it's 7:10. So what I think is, femininity itself is power. Today, when I hear the word women empowerment, the question comes to my mind: you have to be empowered only if you're powerless. The very fact that we are women itself makes us powerful. Femininity is power. We simply need to feel proud of our femininity and not imitate masculinity. Women are good as women. Women should behave like women, not imitate what women of other cultures do because that suits their culture, not what the masculine or the men folk do. Women are always good as women. And whether it is the highly intellectual debates on Brahmagnana by the Vedic women, Gargi, Maitreyi, or Madalasa, who brought up her children singing lullabies of Atmajnana, or it is Savitri, who also was an icon of women power when she said, my life, my choice, I marry Satyavan. But what was that? Was that a hasty decision, blinded with love? No, it was because once you set your mind on a person, she felt the purity of that had to be respected. Lots to rethink in today's world. And what did she do? She rectified the error that she willingly accepted by bringing back Satyavan to life. If our children can say, my choice, my life, my choice, and do what Savitri did, go ahead. What did Sumitra do? As a sister-in-law amongst Kausalya and Kaikeyi, as a mother of Lakshmana who was sidelined because Rama and Bharata stood a better turn, showed the most fruitful perspective to life that brings harmony in a family. What did Urmila do? Support her husband to do what he had to rightfully do at that point in time, although it was difficult and a big sacrifice for her. It was not in her to cause confusion and turmoil in Lakshmana's mind. What did Putlibai do? One incident and the vow of a lifetime to follow truths. What did our Rambha do? Teach Gandhiji a simple mantra of Ram Nam, which he exercised literally till his last breath. What did Jijabai do? Trained her mighty, powerful son to treat another woman like he would treat her. To treat an enemy's son not drunk with the arrogance of power. What did Sudhamurti do? Confident of her ability to perform well, self-confidence is all for women, became the first employee of Tata Telco. What did Isharamma do? Created an empire at Puttaparthi, and made all of us beneficiaries of her simple, selfless desires. What did Bhagwan do? Through little ways, through tiny incidents, through his powerful discourses. Tirelessly he strived to empower women who felt disempowered. The Ladies' Day that he announced in 1995, because Bhagwan repeatedly says women are the custodians of culture. If the next generation of a nation has to be trained in its culture and tradition, it is the responsibility of the woman. The power and glory of womanhood lies in training the next generation in the beautiful culture of the land. With every interaction, Bhagwan gave us a lesson or an injunction which seems very tiny but with great impact. Whether it is to look down and walk, whether it is to treat your in-laws as your own, whether it is to appear in public with kattu, bottu and juttu in place, Swami ensured that he was subtly helping women to come back to the glory and power that they've fallen from, if at all. A simple orthodox Janakamma compelled the Lord to announce to the world what he actually is. Femininity, I want to conclude by repeating this. Being a woman itself is power. We don't have to look to be empowered if you're already a woman. You have examples from all timelines of history, from all kinds of women. Is it possible? It is possible. It's all in the inner strength that we exude as women. Before I close, the talk should not be disconnect from the times that we live in. We are all living in an age of work from home. And I'm sure our laptops, our PCs are loaded with advanced antiviral programs, McAfee, Kaspersky, Norton, whatever, whatnot. But as much as we keep our antivirus program updated in our computers, there is an antivirus program, Sai's name, that should be installed in our hearts and keep it updated through satsangs like this, through bhajan sessions, through nam jap, through whatever suits you as a sadhaka. After all, the purpose of every satsang is to help us be more motivated towards seva and sadhana. And both are equally important. I'm tempted. I hope I have the time. I'm tempted because Swami says, if you have a bath and wear old clothes, you don't feel clean. If you wear new clothes and don't have a bath, you still don't feel clean. There is antar shuddhi and bahar shuddhi. Both are equally important. Seva and sadhana, both are equally important. We cannot say we are so actively doing seva, but if that is not part of our sadhana, then it bears no fruit. We cannot say I do only sadhana and meditation, but I don't go beyond myself to think of what my neighbor needs. That also will be incomplete. So combining seva and sadhana is our way ahead as the fraternity of Sai. Let no virus attack us, because we have the antivirus of Sai's name and form installed in us. And we keep updating it by connecting it to the inner net and not internet. And let me leave you with one last thought. In 70s, in a discourse, I think that Swami gave in Dharmakshetra, I think, Swami says, it is not mandirs that we need. It is minders. He changes a single A and makes it I, and he say, make your mind the mandir. We don't need to construct temples and bhajan mandilis. Now, I think it's all the more relevant today when each of us cannot really visit physically a mandir, including living in Puttaparthi. I cannot go to Prashanti Mandir. It is our minds, minders, that should become mandirs, according to what Swami has told us as early as 1970s. I hope I have given some food for thought and each of us will have our bite depending on our taste from this. Thank you so very much for the opportunity. The benefit is all mine. Sairam.
Om Shri Sai Ram. Thank you for such an engrossing talk, sister. I think there is one question, and there was one more question on empowerment, which you've already answered. Today's woman is forced to juggle her time between her profession, giving quality time to her children, and taking care of her larger family and household. How does she balance all this without the feel of guilt that she hasn't done justice to one or either?
Okay, Swami himself has given us some beautiful insight on this. I'll try to answer from my limited understanding. Swami says, in today's world, because of financial needs and the need to be independent, women might take up work. But Swami, in fact, in the inaugural discourse of Anandpur College, he says, if you leave the children, father and mother are working, and they are casual strangers at home because both leave in the morning and come back in the night. And the children are at the mercy of ayahs or nannies. And children pick up the mannerisms and language of the ayahs or the nannies. And food is cooked by somebody. There is a huge difference between food cooked with love by a mother's hand versus a paid cook. And food served with love by a mother when the family sits together at the table. Swami says if the mother is not able to do these basics, give time to children, take care of the basics at home, then it will have a very big impact on the coming generation. While he does not advise that we should not be working women, I think the most crucial periods of children's growing up, at least, I know a lot of our students who are mindful of this, and maybe 5 years after the child is born, till the child goes to school, etc., they take a break from work because it is a matter of prioritizing whether you want to invest in the next generation, in your family, in your children, or you take up a job that is part-time, that is work from home, that is freelancing, that allows you to manage both. So if you have the guilt that you're not balancing, then it is time to do a stock check, is what I would say.
That was a well-balanced answer, sister. Offering humble salutations at the lotus feet of Bhagwan, thanking him for bringing us all together this evening for yet another wonderful satsang. On behalf of the Shri Satya Sai Organization, MMR, and the Shri Satya Sai Trust Maharashtra, as well as all the devotees who are present today, I offer my heartfelt gratitude to Sister Rani for her valuable time to spend with us today. Sister, you shared such inspiring thoughts on the lives of such ideal women. And this is such an important topic to Swami too, because I remember in 2009, we, MMR Mahila Youth, did a program on Shakti, and Swami was visibly pleased, and he showered so much grace that we still remember that with loving memories. Thank you, sister. We hope to have you again on another such important topic soon. We now conclude this blissful evening with Mangala Aarti, followed by the Shanti Mantra. Jai Sai Ram.
ॐ जय जगदीश हरे स्वामी सत्य साई हरे भक्त जना संरक्षक भक्त जना संरक्षक पति महेश्वरा ॐ जय जगदीश हरे शशिवदना श्रीकरा सर्व प्राणपते स्वामी सर्व प्राणपते आश्रित कल्पलतिका आपद्बान्धवा ॐ जय जगदीश हरे मातपिता गुरुदैवमु मरियन्तयु नीवे स्वामी मरियन्तयु नीवे नाद ब्रह्म जगन्नाथ नाद ब्रह्म जगन्नाथा नागेन्द्रशयना ॐ जय जगदीश हरे ओंकार रूप ओजस्वी ओ साई महादेवा सत्य साई महादेवा मंगलहारति अंदुको मंगलहारति अंदुको मंदर गिरिधारी ओम जय जगदीश हरे नारायण नारायण ओम सत्यनारायण नारायण नारायण ओम नारायण नारायण ओम सत्यनारायण नारायण ओम सत्यनारायण नारायण ओम जय सद्गुरुदेवा नारायण नारायण ओम सत्यनारायण नारायण नारायण ओम नारायण नारायण ओम सत्यनारायण नारायण ओम सत्यनारायण नारायण ओम जय सद्गुरुदेवा नारायण नारायण ओम सत्यनारायण नारायण नारायण ओम नारायण नारायण ओम सत्यनारायण नारायण ओम सत्यनारायण नारायण ओम जय सद्गुरुदेवा शांति 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 समस्तलोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु समस्तलोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु समस्तलोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः जय बोलो भगवान श्री सत्य साई बाबा जी की जय। परमं पवित्रं बाबा विभूतिं परमं विचित्रं लीला विभूतिं परमार्थ इष्टार्थ मोक्ष प्रदानं बाबा विभूतिं इदमाश्रयामि परमं पवित्रं बाबा विभूतिं परमं विचित्रं लीला विभूतिं परमार्थ इष्टार्थ मोक्ष प्रदानं बाबा विभूतिं इदमाश्रयामि परमं पवित्रं बाबा विभूतिं परमं विचित्रं लीला विभूतिं परमार्थ इष्टार्थ मोक्ष प्रदानं बाबा विभूतिं इदमाश्रयामि बाबा विभूतिं इदमाश्रयामि साई बाबा विभूतिं इदमाश्रयामि